The President. Good morning, members, government officials. Government Bill. This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Appropriation Bill 2026. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. Today is the second budget meeting. Members have been informed that only members may speak in the second reading debate to be held today and tomorrow. This Council will continue the second reading debate on the bill at its first budget meeting next Wednesday on the 29th of April, where only public officers may speak to respond to members' views. I remind members that each member may speak once for a maximum of 10 minutes. The actual speaking order of members is decided in accordance with the order in which they press the Request to Speak button. Members who wish to speak today, please press the button as early as possible. Ms. Rebecca Chen. Thank you, President. In the budget, one of the issues that I'm most concerned with is healthcare. Now, the budget this year for healthcare is $103 billion, representing a rise of 2.9%. Now, compared with $83.5 billion a year ago, 2 years ago, this year's budget has increased by 23%. Compared with 10 years ago, where it was only $50 billion, the increase is 90%. Every year, we are increasing our expenditure on healthcare. But can the public, as well as frontline medical healthcare workers, can actually feel the improvements in their working environments and the service they received? Now, this year, the government has been implementing the reform on public healthcare consultation fees. Many members of the public said that the expenditure on follow-up consultation has increased by a lot. Now, in replying to my questions, the government mentioned that after the increase in fees, in the first 2 months, there were some 26,000, equivalent to 3% of the prescription, where the patients did not purchase the drugs prescribed on the prescription. There are many reasons, one being that the patients still have surplus drug at home. Now, the government said that it would help the patients to review their drug use pattern to reduce waste. But I'm worried about the explanation. Now, when the patients still have drugs at home, the doctors may ask them, do you still have drugs at home? Rather than understanding the actual situation of the patients and make a judgment based on the clinical knowledge. Now, when a patient takes the prescription to the pharmacies, they can decide how much drugs they obtain or whether or not they obtain the drug in the first place. That's not a decision which should be left to the patient. Now, if we take that as a KPI on the success of the reform, I beg to differ. The figures do not represent the actual situation. Now, according to my colleagues, some elderly people would have to spend $600 or $700 per prescription, so they choose not to get the drug in the end. Now, I know a friend who is a businessman who needs drug prescription every month. However, because his business is struggling, he is hesitant in getting drugs. So I think this will affect the health of the public a lot down the road. I personally support the reform on our public healthcare system because we are burdened with an aging population and healthcare expenditure is on the rise. A reform is called for. However, a truly effective reform should be aligned with the situation in the public. Now we need to make a lot of preparation by way of investing in primary healthcare system. However, the government is now investing $500 million less in primary healthcare. That is $1.5 billion. Now, for nighttime consultation, the quota places will only be increased gradually later this year. So, before these services quota are in place, the reform is already hurting the public. Now, the most ideal situation is that patients can see a doctor immediately at night without having to wait for a few days' time, and also to be able to obtain prescribed drugs from pharmacies themselves to replenish their stock. And also, pharmacists in pharmacies can help provide some health advice to patients. But we need to make sure that the reforms are not hurting the people. Another areas which we cannot afford to cut costs is manpower. Now, several years ago, the government began hiring part-time nurses. However, I have received complaints from medical officers that the HA has begun cutting the quota of full-time nurses. Now, compared to the peak as March 2023, there were 2,971 full-time nurse manpower. It has been slashed by half last year to 1,392. That's why, despite we have more full-time nurses, they still reflect that they are being snowed under. We understand that hiring a full-time nurse is more stable, given budget constraint, and it is also more ideal in terms of training. But can we implement the transition gradually and cut the number of part-time nurses only when all the full-time nurses have reported duty? Otherwise, the previous efforts will be in vain. That's my suggestion to the HA. The other part is in relation to people's life and health. In November last year, the number 5 alarm fire in Wentworth Court has become our shared pain. The government has actively established the Independent Investigation Committee and conducted other follow-up work. At the same time, we have to enhance education on self-saving and saving others. For example, we need to educate the public with knowledge to save themselves and others. The public needs to be prepared so that they have more survivability in catastrophe. Now, earlier on, I've attended a fire safety talk in the community. It was received enthusiastically by the residents in the community. Firemen put up a drama to show the community how to correctly use fire hose and breathers. Now, I've also attended a course on AED and so on. These courses are very well received. Now, can the government allocate more resources and manpower to publicize these knowledges in community? Besides, another important stakeholder is schools. For example, smoke helms and fire breathers. When under emergencies, there's no time for us to read the instructions. So we need to educate students from a young age on how to use the basic safety equipment as well as how to escape during a fire. When these become muscle memories, they have a higher survivability. Now, in year 2026 and 7, $1 billion has been set aside for fire safety education, an increase of 17.9%. I hope that these additional resources can be used more on campus and community education. For example, the FSD is now running and building emergency response scheme as well as another campus education scheme. More resources should be allocated to these programs. Now, about saving themselves and others. Concerning the AED as well as CPR courses, these are very important. Now, every year there are 6,000 people died from heart diseases. More than 2,000 people died out of cardiac arrest. Now, on an average, 3 to 6 persons died of cardiac arrest each day. Now, even when there is a cardiac arrest episode, it does not mean that the patient is not savable. There are a few minutes of golden period. With CPR coupled with AED, the survivability can be significantly enhanced. But only 10% of the population has received CPR training. If there is a regular curriculum on CPR and AED during school age, we can do much better. Now, I remind the public that there is an AED website operated by the Fire Services Department for the public to locate the nearest AED, which is not known to many people. Then when we talk about budgets, it is absolutely right to talk about economy and developments, but nothing is more important than our lives. Let's take one step further and give more resources to popularize the education on saving ourselves and others. Mr. Andrew Lam. President, in recent times, the world has been changing rapidly. Geopolitical conflicts and trade barriers have been erected. Now, under this situation, we need to adhere to our core, that is, simultaneous developments of security and developments. Now, our competitive ranking has rebounded in year 2024 and 2025. We have returned to number 3 in the world. It shows that security and a stable political environment is the premises of capital and investment inflow. Now, under this complex situation, this budget is themed on driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. It shows the government's determination to chart a path forward. Now, to distinguish ourselves in this situation, we have to enhance our international competitiveness and establish an irreplaceable strategic safe haven. Now, in my proposal, I propose the 4 frameworks, that is, reforming our economic structure, renewing our urban areas, and reforming the administrative structure. To make Hong Kong a safe haven for global investors, we have to be proactive and strike with initiative. Now, in the reform of our economic structure, we have to attach values to big data. It is the new petrol in the new era. It is a component for new growth. Now, the government will establish the AI plus an industry development strategy to support a high-quality digital transformation, and also the ensemble as well as the CDI commercial data interchange launched by the HAMA is also a prime example of this effort. Now we have to break the situation of data island and allow synergy between data and our financial and trading system. So besides security, we will also enjoy absolute advantage in data. In terms of technology and education, the budget has proposed integrated developments between talents, education, and industry. The effort will focus on new emerging sectors like AI and robotics and healthcare. That aligns with my proposal. Now, the INT industry-oriented fund, as well as the $1 billion earmarked by the Hong Kong Investments Corporation, are all patients' capital. Now we have to closely align our resources with the development of talents and attraction of industries to turn ourselves into a super value adder with core strengths. In terms of education, the budget mentioned that we need to speed up development of the university town and also establish the 3rd medical school. This is the right direction to industrialize education. Now, education is a great growth engine for other economic activities. Urban planning and development is the vessel of economic growth. Now, the Northern Metropolis is our major growth engine. Now, there are people who worry about the astronomical amount invested in the Northern Metropolis, but I support the government in this path. We cannot slow our pace due to short-term economical fluctuation or headwinds. Now, the government will establish a dedicated company to take forward the development of the Hong Shui Kiu Science Park and also the Hong Kong Park of the Loop. It will closely align with the development direction of our industry. Now, the government plans to inject $10 billion each into the two park companies as a seed fund. Now, this sends a clear message to the markets that the government is determined. Now, we cannot sacrifice the well-being of the environment. We have to seize the opportunity brought about by new energy. The budget mentioned that we need to speed up the development of the iPark to turn waste into energy. Resources will be injected into the Monuments and Antiquities Fund as well as the NM Urban Rural Integration Fund. Now, I think that this is very important in retaining talents. In choosing their base, besides the advanced level of the city, talents also care about environment and living standard. Now, development and conservation can coexist. Now, this is the very core strengths that we need. Now, economic reform will bring about some shockwaves. So we cannot neglect the pressure and difficulties faced by the grassroots and the SMEs during this transition period. Now, with the widespread developments of e-commerce and the change in consumption pattern, some industries are facing challenges. Now, despite an additional injection into the bud fund and extension of the application period of the loan guarantee scheme, for many small businesses which are on the brink of closure and also the unemployed, the pain is real. Without security, and if the business environment for SMEs continue to deteriorate, it will threaten our security. So in taking forward these reforms, the government must be more sympathetic in providing support. We cannot leave anyone behind. Now, when society is aging and also when the pupil population is changing, we have to be innovative. Now, investment in education can create economic values and propel our development. Now, in terms of promoting silver economy and enhancing the number of community and home care service voucher for the elderly people, this is a good start. But this is a large industry chain which should be combined with the insurance and banking sector and turn aging population into an opportunity of economic growth. Now, in terms of labor, the Employee Retraining Board will be renamed the Upskill Center. Now, we need to treat the cost on helping our employees to transition as investment in the future. Now, being able to helping the employees to cope with the use of AI is the best investment for the future. Now, finally, we need a very efficient administrative system to help take forward all these measures. Big data also plays an important role in this. Now, the Transport Department will make use of big data analysis technology to establish a platform. The CDD as well as the Water Supplies Department and the Drainage Services Department will also use AI to conduct assessments on slope stability. And also $100 million has been allocated to help transform government services with AI. This is good, but we have to go beyond that. We need to reform the entire structure of the government. All bureaus and departments have to continuously review the allocation of resources and take down the barriers. Only when there is high sensitivity in the government, which is able to use big data for advanced planning, can we ensure that we can ride through this storm of uncertainty. President, 2026 is the starting year of the country's 15th five-year plan. It is also a crucial year for us to set a steady footing. Now we enjoy the advantage of being backed by the country and connected with the world. We need to adhere to security and persevere with development. Only when we consolidate our position as an international safe haven through economic reform, urban renewal, reform of administrative system, and embracing big data and AI, can we make use of our talents and our prestigious environment to tide over this short-term storm and turn our aging population into an opportunity. We can ride over this storm and scale higher heights. I so submit.
Mr. Ronick Chen, President. There are external uncertainties in the geopolitical landscape. The government has been responding to calls from society. In the budget this year, it focuses on developing AI, innovation and technology, finance, and it also mentions upgrading the industry with AI. This actively dovetails with the development direction of the 15th five-year plan. When it comes to easing short-term financial pressure, the government has struck a balance between this area and developing Hong Kong in the long term. The 15th five-year plan explicitly supports developing Hong Kong into a strong financial city. In the budget, there are many measures such as offshore renminbi, expansion of functions, market system, financing, green finance. All these are mentioned in the budget. The geopolitical situation is complex. Hong Kong needs to continue to attract talent, capital to Hong Kong. This is exactly how we can develop new quality productive forces. I'm glad to see that the budget has accepted a lot of my suggestions, including the issuance of renminbi bonds, diversifying market products, and the yield curves and so on. The Hong Kong MA has also implemented measures in this regard. I believe that the financial industry will continue to deepen its participation to attract more international investors to use renminbi to buy investment products. This will help internationalize renminbi. Digital assets, precious metal, and commodities, these have been covered under the tax concessions. Some measures include providing tax concessions to organizations providing gold trading. This dovetails with the existing trend around the world. When it comes to market regime, Mr. Rock Chen and I have made suggestions on improving the listing regime. More importantly, we proposed to upgrade market infrastructure, such as the paperless securities regime. This will attract different companies and enterprises to go listed in Hong Kong. This will further develop the capital market in Hong Kong. When it comes to innovative financing, the budget mentions enhancing the efficiency of different enterprises' financing. Commercial data interchange, it was covered. There are different measures for solving the pain points facing the INT industry. It is hoped that this opportunity will help the INT sector to overcome different pain points and reach breakthroughs. It is also hoped that different measures will be implemented as soon as possible. Regarding green finance, the carbon market is expected to be taken forward as soon as possible. This will enhance Hong Kong's international position in green finance. The above financial measures will be incorporated into Hong Kong's first 5-year plan. I hope that we will see the results of such measures as soon as possible. The Northern Metropolis is a main engine for growth of the INT development in Hong Kong. In the budget, it is mentioned that more financial resources will be provided, including the injection of $10 billion earmarked for Centene Technopole and the dedicated company. This will lay a strong foundation of the development in this regard. There will also be PPP, including the unleashing of land potential, facilitating forward flows, the development of the modern logistics cycle, as well as the Northern Metropolis University Town alongside the Third Medical School in Hong Kong. The Northern Metropolis development is at a critical juncture at present. We need to attract the private market to participate in it. First of all, we need to expand the scope of PPP. We need to encourage developers to take part in the large-scale land disposal of the Northern Metropolis. For instance, we need to allow enterprises to use different resources to exchange for the rights to developed land. Through the issuance of bonds, we need to introduce strategic investors to make investments. This will reduce the reliance on the government. In Hung Shui Kiu, we need to test a new development model. For example, we need to construct infrastructure in relation to commerce, leisure, transport. This will enhance the participation of more private companies. I recently attended a seminar. In the United States, there are measures for taking forward financial infrastructure at full steam. At present, we are facing changes all around the world in the global economic landscape. Hong Kong is an international financial center. We need to be proactive in conducting reforms. This is exactly how we can cement our advantages. There are 3 main fronts. One, we need to fine-tune our public finance concepts. We have been spending within our means to consolidate our fiscal strength. This is in line with the basic law. However, we have an aging population, we have a population growth, our housing supply is tense, or our housing supply is limited. We need to strike a balance. On the one hand, we need to relax the ratio of public expenditure to GDP. We also need to make investments to invest in our future. We need to assess the impact of an aging population on long-term fiscal position. We need to be on the offensive. We need to invest in the future to solve our existing pain points. The Northern Metropolis development shows Hong Kong government's resolution in this regard. The Hong Kong government is going to claw back some funds, that is $150 billion in 2 years. And the green infrastructure bond ceiling will also be increased to $900 billion. This is worth our acknowledgement. The taxation scheme will also be improved. The existing scheme has been running for a long time. However, we need to target emerging and future enterprises to provide more tax concessions in order to attract more enterprises to establish a presence in Hong Kong. We also need to review the tax base and tax regime of Hong Kong. We need to stay attractive to global capital. At the same time, we need to expedite the application of digital currency and blockchain technologies. We need to improve our settlement system to improve cross-boundary transaction efficiency. We need to enhance the resilience of our cybersecurity. We need to seize upon the opportunities in the midst of reform so that we can continue to leverage on our roles as a superconductor. This is exactly how we can create value. The Middle East war has caused a surge in global fuel prices. The Hong Kong government has set up a cross-departmental task force to track fuel prices as well as local supply. 4 targeted measures have been implemented. The Finance Committee on the Council has already green-lighted the subsidies of fuel or diesel. This shows the resolution of the government to address social issues. However, the government needs to keep a close eye on the international landscape. The government needs to prevent fuel companies from shifting the burden onto consumers, that is, members of the public. The core of the budget is to solve the issues facing the public in order to enhance the sense of well-being and happiness. I speak in support of the budget 2026, that is the Appropriation Bill 2026. Mr. Gary Chan. Thank you, President. The budget focuses on driving high-quality, inclusive growth with innovation and finance. At the same time, the budget also proposes to take forward low-altitude economy, life and health science, AI, aeronautical science, and so on. From the exchange fund, $150 billion will be brought back in order to support the development of the Northern Metropolis. We have seen that the operating account has turned from red to black. A lot of measures have been proposed, including the parent allowance, tax concessions, rate concessions being raised to $3,000, as well as providing subsidies to upgrade elevators in residential care homes. The budget also targets some emerging enterprises or industries such as gold trading, as well as drones, sports funds. All these are measures proposed by the DAB. I thank the administration for taking on board our views. This year marks the opening year of the 15th Five-Year Plan. We can see that the Financial Secretary is actively dovetailing with the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. Hong Kong is facing different challenges. The budget consolidates our strengths and lays a strong foundation for our future development. The DAB expresses its recognition and acknowledgement of the budget. At the end of this year, the first ever Hong Kong 5-year plan will be announced. This has enhanced the top-level planning of the Hong Kong government. This shows that the government's mind has changed from proactive non-intervention to a capable government. How can we lead Hong Kong to transform its economy? How can we more actively dovetail with the national development? All of us are looking forward to this. This requires the concerted participation of the entire Hong Kong. On the 15th of April, we have the National Security Education Day. Mr. Xia Baolong pointed out that we need to actively dovetail with the 15th Five-Year Plan of our country. We cannot afford to look on with folded arms. Instead, we need to contribute to our country and make contributions to our country's national development strategies. In the course of preparing for the 5-year plan of Hong Kong, I hope that the government should bear in mind the central idea of having a people-centric approach. President Xi Jinping already said that we need to stay true to our goal. We need to improve the livelihood and people's lives of Hong Kong. The development plan of Hong Kong needs to dovetail with that of China. At the end of the day, we need to let members of the public live with a better life, better income, a more livable environment. We want to give members of the public a better life. That is why the Financial Secretary has not only taken into account financial sustainability, but he has also paid attention to the actual impacts on members of the public as a result of these financial adjustments. The government has granted a special grant to help industries plagued by the surge in fuel prices. Members of the Council in general expressed support. Likewise, be it medical reforms or transport concession adjustments or any other measures that have to do with the life of people, probably we need to tighten our belts against the current backdrop of financial deficit or fiscal deficit. That said, we shouldn't skim on funding provided to the grassroots in Hong Kong. I hope that the Financial Secretary will continue to strike a balance between fiscal sustainability and the lives of Hong Kong people. I want to cite two examples to share with members. First, on healthcare fees. While we were talking to the public, we received a lot of inquiries and applications about medical fee waivers. A lot of them came from sandwich class families, and a lot of them are elderly people. They said that the increase in the prices of specialist clinic have caused a significant burden on their lives. There was a comment on my social media account. They needed to spend $600 when they visited specialist outpatient clinic thrice. However, this year, the price has gone up to $2,600. Probably $2,000 aren't a lot to members of the council. However, from the perspective of grassroots in Hong Kong, $2,000 do matter to them. That is perhaps the money that they can buy groceries for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. In other words, for grassroots or the sandwich class, this is indeed a significant burden. Another heartbreaking example is that when members of the public go to the GOPC, General Outpatient Clinic, they heard that the elderly person told the nurse, "Well, can I be charged less if I get less medicines? Can I take fewer medicines?" Our hearts sink when we hear this. A patient would rather take less medicines. They do not want to pay as much medical fee. It is not the case that they do not want to pay, but then they do not have the money to do so. This is a real-life example. I believe this is the situation that a lot of members of the council have seen. That is why, when the government is tightening its belt or cutting resources, the government needs to show care for the disadvantaged in society so that their lives will not be made even more difficult than they were in the past. This is the very goal of the Financial Secretary. In the long run, in formulating economic policies, there should be sufficient patience and resolution. He needs to assume the role of a patient capital. If a policy chops and changes, we cannot retain talent. A market that lacks vision cannot attract capital either. Recently, we have seen geopolitical landscape in a state of flux. Global capital is looking for a stable place to make investments. The Hong Kong government needs to use a stable budget and long-term investment to send a message to the international community that we do have the confidence and commitment to the long-term development of Hong Kong. By and large, for this budget, it shows the innovative mindset and dedication of the Hong Kong government. It shows that we actively dovetail with the strategic development of our country. It also shows that we support the development of the Northern Metropolis. However, we need to emphasize that economic development aims to allow all members of the public to share the economic fruits. I hope that the government would care for grassroots in Hong Kong in the midst of carrying out reforms so that all members of the public in Hong Kong can really benefit from a prosperous city. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill.
Mr. Jonathan Lamport. Thank you, President. First of all, I would like to express my recognition for this year's budget of the Financial Secretary. He practiced prudent finances and he tried to drive growth, and we have successfully reversed the declining trend in the last few years in fiscal position, and it really shows the government's commitment to eliminate the deficit. It also proposes to enhance infrastructure, provide better support for SMEs, as well as have an increase in basic tax concessions, and to make an injection to the bud fund and to issue more bonds. I think the government can do more in 3 areas. One, we want to make sure to have subsidies for going global. We also want to make sure we retain the capital who are just here to lower the risk and make them into long-term capital. First of all, on why we need to subsidize going global. We are an open economy and we are subject to different changes, and unfortunately, in this year, we have seen great changes in the world, and we have seen changes with the supply chain. The National 15 5-year plan tells us what we have to do, but then we have different geopolitical changes. Even my 7-year-old daughter knows what Strait of Hormuz is. And now Hong Kong is going to promulgate its first 5-year plan. And I have been working at the General Chamber of Commerce Committee on Asia, Africa, and Middle East for about 10 years. I have been paying close attention to the Middle Eastern market for many years. And I can see in the past few years, the government has been working hard to develop the Middle Eastern market. We have laid good foundations. When we're trying to reap the fruits, now we see the war happening. But it does not mean we should stop liaising with the Middle East. We need to be confident in them because they have deep foundations in the economy. I think it is time for us to really tide over the gap with them, and we're trying to develop the emerging market of Central Asia as well. But the problem is with going global for the SMEs in particular, going to the Middle East would cost a lot in flights. We need to also understand there are different risks. According to Hong Kong U's latest study, in the first quarter, exports is 26.6%. In Q2, it will be reduced to 19.9%. We need to understand that export numbers represent the growth of transshipment cargo in Hong Kong. We have to understand enterprises may be impeded by the costs in 3 to 6 months, and 9 to 12 months later, we'll see even greater reduction in exports and trade figures. We do want to see things get worse. And if we help enterprises go global, it is to provide support to them and by extension helping us out of this. With the support mechanism, it does not really tie in with the latest circumstances. We have an injection to the bud fund of $200 million, and you have increased the cap. But then with a matching basis of 1, 2, 3, there we have SMEs needing 150,000 subsidies. They will need to have $600,000 in their resources. So they are not the ones who need subsidies the most. I suggest the government to have emergency going global subsidies. I can see that government officials are working hard, and I think we need to really catch up. We have in the neighboring regions, for example, South Korea has $10.5 billion in emergency subsidies to help their local SMEs. And we have also Singapore increasing the subsidy ratio from 50% to 70%. If Hong Kong does not do anything, we will lag behind. If we do not help enterprises, for example, buy flight tickets and visa fees, it can really impede their incentives. We shouldn't think of this as an expenditure. It is important for us to maintain international trading center status. The Middle Eastern war may have brought about different risks, but it has also brought about opportunities. We have seen a great amount of capital coming to Hong Kong. We are essentially a risk shelter. We have global capital trying to seek shelter right now. And we are one of the top 3 locations with our advantages in tax system. And we are also the safest asset management center. But we should then stop here because the war is going to end at some point. If we do not seize this golden opportunity within the 3 to 6 months to convert this into long-term capital, Hong Kong would just be a car park for this capital, and they will leave when it's time to leave. We need to make sure we have policy concession packages. For example, we should have tax concessions. We can have a half-rate tax concessions to encourage gold traders and settlement centers to settle in Hong Kong. We also need to make sure we provide a one-stop service hub, legal, accountancy, and financing services. We should also tell people about the successful examples to show overseas investors we are safe and stable. Lastly, we need to go beyond being a bridge. We need to be a partner. We have been doing well so far, but Hong Kong needs to make greater contributions to the country. The country's national 5-year plan specifically says it supports Hong Kong and Macau to better integrate into the country. So we should, on top of being a super connector and super value adder, we can help enterprises go global, provide more value-added services, encourage the local business sector to work with mainland enterprises to go global so we can actually be their partners. We have Hong Kong enterprises of a smaller scale than mainland enterprises, but we have international experience. We can really be a good brand for mainland enterprises to go global. The local business sector can take part in trying to attract enterprises, helping to identify right enterprises, and perhaps form joint ventures with them to move into the mainland market. This will really make good use of our advantages. We want to retain investors who are here taking shelter. We need to also help Hong Kong integrate into the development of the country to make great contributions to the country. I'm very glad to see the government showing their commitment to support enterprises and work with enterprises. I hope in implementation, the financial secretary can, with regard to the circumstances, show even greater commitment and support for SMEs as well as overseas enterprises so that we can truly be the pearl of the Orient or even diamond of the Orient. I so submit, speaking in support of the bill. Mr. Robert Lee. Thank you, President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. This is the first year of the National 15 5-year plan. We really need to actively dovetail with the measures in the 5-year plan. We have a series of measures to develop new revenue sources and save costs. We are also to maintain the center's positioning. The budget also talks about making sure we keep expenditure within the limits. We have recently increased the ceiling limit for bond program to $900 billion. In the next 5 years, the government debt to GDP ratio will be 14.4% and it will increase to 19.9%. It is still significantly lower than most advanced economies. It is at a reasonable level. With the current complex geopolitical situation, the government should actively try to boost the financial market to boost the economy and help other sectors. For the financial sector, there are 3 areas we can focus on. 1, we can deepen reforms in the capital market. We can also promote comprehensive development. We should also promote connectivity. According to HKEX's data, last year we have a turnover of approximately $250 billion. In the first 3 months of this year, it has got up to $280 million. And last year, the IPO amount reached $286 billion. We ranked first in the world. In the first 3 months of this year, we have $110 billion in IPO capital. We have a very active market, but the sector is not benefiting from this. The regulatory bodies should really review the main board and the GEM board positioning to make sure we can really boost the GEM market. We also need to make sure we seize the potential in development of SMEs, including those have already listed as well as those who have potential to list in future. We should also promote the services of small and medium-sized financial firms. I'm very glad to see that the budget has plans to reform the board lot system as well as promoting the Hong Kong OTC market. That will promote the sector's development. I hope that these measures can be implemented as soon as possible. And I also want the government to provide support to the firms who are negatively affected by uncertificated securities regime. I also urge the Hong Kong EX as well as the SFC to review fee levels and to deal with custodial issues. There should also be relaxation of restrictions on reverse takeovers and listing rules. We should also enhance the clearing regime for securities futures as well as cross-market products. We have seen different proposals in the budget that I appreciate. For example, promoting the internationalization of renminbi, to set down the development blueprint for a fixed income and currency market, as well as expediting the development of commodities, digital assets, and gold. I urge the government to promote the retail development of financial products, including silver bonds, infrastructure bonds, as well as promote inclusive finance and meet the demand for fixed income products. I hope that futures and derivative business can have 23-hour trading as soon as possible. We also need to enhance promotion of the futures market that will provide facilitation for futures traders to develop digital asset business to try to boost the trading of futures and derivatives trading. As a result, we also need to do more to support the gold market. We need to remove the unnecessary restrictions. We also need to have the Hong Kong Monetary Authority encourage banks to embrace precious metals and digital asset traders. They should not consider such business to be high risk. We should have more institutional and retail investors take part in digital asset trades denominated in different currencies. We also need to expedite the approval of licenses. we should have more derivatives of digital assets, futures, and options. For private equity, we should have dedicated subsidies to encourage Cayman Island funds to move to Hong Kong. We should also encourage limited partnership funds to expand their operations in Hong Kong. We can do that by providing tax concessions. We can also have the HKEX lower the listing costs so that more funds will list in Hong Kong. On enhancing connectivity, there is no mention in the budget on expanding cross-boundary wealth management connect, and there have been calls in the sector for this for long. We should have more low to medium risk investment, alternative investment, and private equity products. We should also encourage more mainland firms to form collaboration arrangements with Hong Kong firms so as to enhance their participation. We should also have mutual recognition of qualifications in the finance sector within the Greater Bay Area. On our good foundations, we should further enhance cross-boundary selling and promotion arrangements so that practitioners on both sides can develop their business further. We can have the government take the lead to work with the sector to hold more seminars as well as delegation visits, especially with small and medium-sized financial firms to develop business in markets such as the Middle East, ASEAN, and Belt and Road countries. We should deepen ties with these different regions to introduce capital into mainland projects in advanced tech, healthcare, and innovative and technology. On industry, commerce, INT, and tourism, I have got feedback from the different sectors. We should make good use of the Greater Bay Area as a testing location to promote collaboration with the mainland, so that for commerce discussions as well as legal and financing services, we can provide one-stop going global services. We should work with Shenzhen in INT. We need to enhance our industrial positioning. We should have that tie in with the development plans of the Northern Metropolis and have an venture capital fund to really promote coordinated development. We also need to enhance collaboration between the West Kowloon Cultural District and the Kai Tak Sports Park to provide transport connectivity as well as packages so that we have coordinated synergistic development of different attractions. Please heed these calls of the business sector on this. The budget also talked about having regulate the development of Corp ID platform. I hope the government can expedite the construction of the platform to promote data sharing between government bodies and business sector companies to allow for authentication of identity and verify corporate signatures, and that will help simplify the bank procedures of companies that will save manpower costs and enhance efficiency. I so submit speaking in support of the bill.
Professor Chen Wing-Kwong. Thank you, President. I speak in full support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. That is the budget. This year's budget has been delivered under the context of Hong Kong's robust recovery as well as the government turning around its budget. I'm pleased to see that the Financial Secretary has been actively using our resources to actively tie in with the National 15 5-year plan, and that the AI Plus and Industry Development Strategy Committee will be established, as well as another $10 billion will be injected into digital bond grant scheme. It shows that the government will be using our innovation and technology prowess to support the diverse development of our economy. And also the budget has been active in providing support to the Wang Fuk Court fire families. $4 billion has been allocated to support the long-term accommodation for the residents. It shows the government's determination and made the budget with warmth. Now, the cap of the relevant tax concession has been raised to $3,000, and also there are different sweetness measures amounting to $22 billion, an increase of 1.8 times compared to last year. It shows the government is still adhered to its commitments to serve the public. And also, it shows that the government is sharing the economic benefits with the grassroots, enhancing the sense of well-being of the people. It is a pragmatic and also innovative budget, which is well deserving our support. Now, this is the starting year of the National 15th Five-Year Plan. I'm pleased to see that the budget has mentioned a number of measures to tie in with the 15th Five-Year Plan, including contributing to the development of a modern industry ecosystem of the country, enhancing the country's ability to pursue innovation and research, as well as supporting the country's high-quality opening up and development. It shows the government's proactiveness as well as the vision. These measures will help consolidate Hong Kong's advantage in innovation, talents, and financing, which will in turn support Hong Kong's high-quality development. Now, the government is now in full steam in formulating the first ever five-year plan for Hong Kong with a very large vision. Now, together with the budget as well as the other measures mentioned in the policy address, the first five-year plan is something that we are very much looking forward to. With the three documents combined, we can ensure that we can ride on the bandwagon of the country's rapid development while contributing ourselves into the country's development. Now, I will turn to the estimate expenditure on Chinese medicine, which is my own field. I thank the government for accepting me and the DAB's proposal to inject $500 million into the Chinese Medicine Development Fund. That is the second injection after the 2023-4 injection. It shows the government's determination to develop the Chinese medicine sector. Now, with the efforts of the national government and the Hong Kong South government, we have published the first ever blueprint, Chinese medicine development blueprint in last December, and also the first Chinese medicine hospital, as well as the government Chinese medicine testing institute have been commissioned. It is a timely move. The injection will help deliver all the measures mentioned to promote high-quality development of the Chinese medicine sector in Hong Kong. More importantly, the National 15th Five-Year Plan stipulates that we need to promote inheritance and innovation of Chinese medicine. And we have to grow the industry further and promote the Chinese medicine sector going global. Now, the $500 million will be spent on conducting thematic studies as well as publicity in the country and the world. Undoubtedly, that will help us tap the opportunity and bring Chinese medicine to the world. Now, we have a unique strength that we have a very robust accreditation system as well as drug testing regime. Now, in the future, under the fund, I suggest setting an item for overseas marketing to help Chinese medicine businesses to tap the overseas markets and promote the growth of Chinese medicine so that it becomes our next growth point. Now, as a member of the healthcare sector, I'm very concerned about the expenditure on healthcare. Now, starting from this year, the government has implemented the fee reform for public healthcare system. And the government said that it has achieved significant achievements in terms of cost saving. However, according to the budget, the recurrent expenditure on healthcare is $118.9 billion, accounting for 19.8% of the government's total recurrent expenditure. With the Asian population, the expenditure will only increase. So besides implementing the reform on fee structure, there should be other effective strategies to cut costs, for example, using technology to reduce the expenditure on healthcare. This is how we can deal with the heavy burden brought about by aging population as well as our aging healthcare structure. On the other hand, the public healthcare system is important in protecting public's health. So we shouldn't determine the success of the reform just by the dwindling number of patients attending the emergency departments. Now, the government should conduct a study on the impact on the public by the fee structure reform and also formulate measures to safeguard public's health so that no one will be deprived timely cure because of financial means. Now, the government should also continue to adhere to promoting primary health care. These measures will provide more options for patients, and also it will shift the focus from treatment to prevention, thus ensuring the quality and sustainability of our public healthcare system. That's why I support all these measures. And also I support the idea of conducting life and health researches. Now this will showcase our strengths in terms of talents as well as the research capability, and will also promote a high quality development. In terms of promoting the growth of life and health industries, we need to be focused on commercializing the research outcomes. And also we have to consider how these developments can bring about more quality employment opportunities as well as economic values for the public, so as to share the fruit with the public. Now the 15th Five-Year Plan has provided sufficient and clear support for our development. At the same time, the budget has laid down a blueprint for our development. Now, as long as we are united, we can continue to gallop towards a brighter future. I so submit I support the passage of the Appropriation Bill. Reverend Peter Kuhn. President, the latest budget has made much effort in providing alleviation measures. There are timely support for SMEs and the grassroots. In terms of the increase in tax concession, it is also a timely sweetener for the employees. Now, the increase in the tax concession of parents' care and children allowance will also be fruitful. Now, as a member which monitor the government's performance, I have to say my true views. Now, the government is still adopting a broad brush approach in implementing the productivity enhancement program. That is a 2% of expenditure saving each year. It means that the funding for social welfare organizations will be slashed continuously. Our aging population has been growing every year. That's the reality. With more elderly people, we have to give more funding to social welfare organizations. However, with less funding, these organizations will have to cut manpower as well. There will be inadequate services for the elderly residents. Now, the additional month of CSSA payment is questionable in the long-term value for society. I have told the financial secretary on numerous occasions that we need to maintain the quality service of the social welfare organizations. Now, with reduced funding, that would be impossible. One day, the financial reserves of all the social welfare organizations will be burnt out, and then there will be a huge gap between service level and funding. Now, I hope that the governments can be more targeted in supporting social welfare organizations so that we can still make use of the resources we get to help others and contribute to social harmony. I hope the colleagues in the Office of the Financial Secretary can understand the difficulties faced by the social welfare sector. We will be pleased to continue the dialogue with them. Now, after talking about the emergency needs of the social welfare sector, I need to move on to the more deep-rooted issues. Now, despite significant structural pressure, now on the surface, there is a $2.9 billion in surplus, but that's a cause for celebration, because it is the first time the government has turned back to the black after the epidemic. But if you look closer, there are some concerns. Now, there has been a lot of concerns concerning the government treating debt as revenue. But these are only debts. How can we treat them as revenue? Now, in the budget, the government claims that in the surplus, some $133 billion have been obtained from debentures. Now, excluding the loan, in fact, the government is facing a $104 billion deficit. It's just like a person covering his daily expenses with credit card, but still telling others that they have savings. This is really a cause for concern. The government says that the government's debt will only be spent on investment in infrastructure rather than spending the loans on recurrent items. But how can the government pay back the principal on top of the interest? Where will the money come from? In the next 5 years, the debt program will be expanded to $900 billion. Starting from next year, the government will have to pay $100 billion back for a year. That is a huge pressure, and that will hurt the government's financial capability in the future. Now, if the return of the investment is worse than expected, then how much money will be left for alleviating the plight of the society? Who will pay the bill? Another matter which has caused a lot of debate is that the government has clawed back $150 billion from the foreign exchange fund to support the infrastructure projects in the Northern Metropolis. Now, this is the first time in 40 years that the government is taking money from this bedrock of our stability. Now, the foreign exchange fund is the last defense. Its main purpose is to support the link exchange rate system and also tide Hong Kong over financial crisis, as seen in previous financial tsunamis. Now, when there are financial storms and tsunamis, and if there is a lack of liquidity in the reserve fund, the consequence is dire. And there are worries that we have opened the Pandora box. On the next occasion when the government needs money, will it take from the foreign exchange fund again? Now, this so-called surplus has put makeup on the financial deficit. We know that in the next few years, the revenue from tax revenue will be low. Especially, there will be significantly less revenue from land sale. Now, despite the increase in revenue from profit tax and other taxes, these are just short-term. Now, we are bidding farewell to the land financing model, and government debt is inevitable. We are moving from a conservative approach to a leverage approach in public finance management. The consolidated account is still in deficit. We are only achieving a balance with the gains from debt issuance. It shows that we are not out of the deep water yet. Now, in the next 3 years, the accumulated deficits will grow to $300 billion, so we can't be complacent. Now, in faced with all these challenges, I hope the government will listen to my suggestions. First of all, in terms of creating revenue stream, we need to expand the tax base. For example, reviewing the tax rates for profits tax and also other at a more rungs on the tax ladder. And also we should study whether we should implement a sales tax to increase the recurrent revenue, rather just relying on land sale or debt issuance. On cost saving, the government must re-establish its financial discipline. Now, the civil service establishment has been reduced in size. However, the effect on cutting salary, the effect on cutting a cost on remuneration is not huge because the government is still employing a substantial strength of the civil service. The government should study replacing some civil service posts with AI to reduce the cost on civil service. Now, concerning mega-scale projects like the Northern Metropolis, the government must justify the long-term return as well as the basis of analysis to enhance transparency so that the investors and the public have faith in these projects. The development of Northern Metropolis is a long-term investment to the scale of trillions of dollars. The public is concerned about the mismatch between the scale of investments and the return. Now, the governments can provide different ranges of analysis under different scenarios to prevent these misunderstandings to balloon. And also, the government must be careful with management of the fund, especially the foreign exchange fund. Now, the government should pay heed to the warnings. It's not like taking money from a piggy bank. It's like how we spend our red pocket money. They should be used only in rainy days. So we should look at the structural issues head on and lay the sound foundation for our finance.
Mr. Hong Kam-in, thank you, President. First of all, I thank the Secretariat of the Council for preparing the relevant information, and I also thank the administration for providing detailed replies to our questions. High-ranking principal officials of the administration attended the special meetings of the Finance Committee to answer our questions. These opportunities allow us to understand the gist of the budget. This budget actively dovetails with the 15th five-year plan of our country. It also shows the long-term vision of the administration in relation to Hong Kong's first five-year plan. Hong Kong is at the critical juncture of economic juncture. I'm going to make proposals on the following fronts. 1. On silver economy. We need to turn population pressure into momentum for strength. According to the CNSD, in 2023, the number of there were about 1.64 million people aged 65 or above in 2023, accounting for 22.8%. In 2043, this figure will continue to rise to 2.67 million, accounting for 35%. If we factor in inflation and population growth, in 2024, the total consumption amount will surpass $342 billion in 2024. And in 2046, this amount will further rise to $145 billion. We can see that there is immense potential in the silver hair group. There is immense consumption power among the silver-haired in Hong Kong. We need to turn the silver-hair population in Hong Kong into consumption power. We need to make it the engine for growth. I believe in Hong Kong, around us, there are elderly people making contributions in different industries in Hong Kong. Elderly people in Hong Kong have a lot of experience. They are very intelligent. They definitely have the capacity to continue to make contributions to society. That is why the government should adopt a forward-looking approach to unleash the potential of the silver hair group in Hong Kong. We have a silver hair economy, and we can draw reference from the mainland and Japan. We need to promote healthy retirement. We need to form a complete industry chain. In year 2000, Japan implemented an insurance policy and seized upon the opportunities to turn the healthcare market for elderly people into an industry. In the Chinese mainland, the 15th Five-Year Plan refers to facing the aging population in Hong Kong. This will be a major driver for growth. I suggest on this basis rolling out tax concessions. Gerontechnology should be incorporated into healthcare vouchers. We need to unleash the vast potential of consumption in the silver hair group. We also need to add vitality to SMEs. We need to help them to thrive. SMEs account for over 98% of all enterprises in Hong Kong. They are the pillar of the local economy. They employ as many as 1.56 million people in Hong Kong. However, a lot of studies in Hong Kong show that SMEs suffer from insufficient capital, which hinders their development. For some funding schemes, the application procedures are cumbersome and complicated. We need to add vitality to the scheme, and we need to solve different pain points. To this end, the government needs to simplify application procedures and expedite the handling of applications. The government should also consider setting up SME Development Fund to provide low-interest funds or grants, especially in the areas of AI, green technologies. We need to add vitality in these areas to SMEs. In addition, we need to groom AI talent. This is for our future. The Hong Kong Productivity Council in 2025 conducted a survey on the use of AI among the enterprises in Hong Kong. About 90% of the enterprises are using AI. However, we lack professional talent, and this is the major barrier. Some logistics companies have already introduced AI systems, but owing to a lack of professional engineers, these companies fail to give full play to the potential of AI. As many as 88% of employees are using AI tools, but less than 30% of them have systematic training. This shows this deficiency in AI training. We need to get ahead of our competitors in global competition. In Shenzhen and in Singapore, they have been strengthening efforts to train AI talent. They have specific certification system. Hong Kong is facing even more pressure. We need to have the resolve to improve and to outrun our competitors. We need to have the resolve to train talent. I suggest having AI talent nurturing scheme. We need to set up an education alliance in the GBA. We need to set up a mutual recognition of qualifications as well. We need to improve the talent admission schemes and talent visa schemes to attract global high-end talent to come to Hong Kong. When we have a certificate system, we can improve the local professional regime in Hong Kong. And this is exactly how we can further develop the new quality productive forces. When it comes to the gold market, we need to play a more influential role in the world. Hong Kong is the third largest gold trading center in the world. We have 200 years of history. In November 2025, the Hong Kong Gold Exchange had a daily turnover transaction of 2.9 billion Hong Kong dollars. 100% of growth year on year. This shows the robust market. Our goal is to develop Hong Kong into an Asia gold market, not just one in Hong Kong. We need to become a hub of renminbi-denominated gold products in the gold market. To achieve this, we need to, first of all, expedite the provision of high specification storage facilities. At the same time, we also need to support the development of more renminbi denominated products. We also need to encourage the innovative application of blockchains. We need to work with Shanghai Gold Exchange to hold international gold forums. We need to work with Belt and Road Initiative to enhance the influential role of Hong Kong in the global arena. Global uncertainties and changes are at the same time opportunities. We need to help SMEs to improve, and we need to add vitality to the SME industry. We need to help AI shine. We need to help Hong Kong continue to prosper. Only by then can we keep our advantage and competitive edge. Thank you. Mr. Bill Tang. Thank you, President. In the second reading debate this time, I'm going to speak on 4 fronts. 1. Overall comments and expectations. 2. On the 15th Five-Year Plan and our role, that is our first 5-year plan. 3. Kowloon East CBD, and 4. On building management. The main highlight of the budget is turning from red to black. In the special meeting of the Finance Committee, I made a comparison very clearly, comparing with the last time when the SAR government handled fiscal deficit. The method was to curb expenses and to reduce development. However, this time round, the government insists on investing in the future. The government is pouring a lot of money into the development of the Northern Metropolis, like public housing, housing supply, public residential housing, GSH. We have seen increase in resources in these areas. However, the government still managed to turn from red to black without compromising other areas such as a shortage of housing or the speculation of housing. We can see the efforts of the administration. In the 15th Five-Year Plan, it is mentioned that we need to invest in the people. We need to exhaust different means to make Hong Kong a livable society, a society where people will want to give birth and where people enjoy family-friendly employment practices. We need to enhance a sense of well-being among people in Hong Kong. We also need to, at the same time, ensure priority being accorded to local employees. Indiscriminately increasing the quota for imported labor would definitely affect the sense of well-being of local workers. The 468 arrangement is considered a good policy that will help wage earners in Hong Kong. However, some companies would rather apply for importing labor instead of taking on part-timers. This has dashed the hopes of wage earners who want to improve their lives. I hope that the government will insist on investing in people. Turning to 15th Five-Year Plan, the Hong Kong Government, Legislative Council, and all sectors of society are looking forward to having the first 5-year plan of Hong Kong. Regarding my personal views, we need to be targeted. We should focus on quality instead of quantity. We need to focus on economic development, industrial planning, as well as our principle of one country, two systems. We have our own strengths. Our country is vast. If you have read the 15th Five-Year Plan, there are a total of 20 main indicators. We do not need many indicators. We enjoy our own competitive edge comparing with other major cities. However, at the same time, we also enjoy the benefits of one country, two systems. In Hong Kong, every 100,000 members of the public, can we have a ratio of patent? This is an international standard. We can also turn Hong Kong into an innovative society. This is an important indicator. Whenever we talk about research, how much is its ratio to GDP? At present, it's on the low side, just 1%, and for Shenzhen, about 5%. But as long as we have an indicator, then we have a direction forward. We also need to have a public-private ratio. I hope that enterprises will pour their precious resources into R&D. In the interest of time, owing to this complex topic, I'm going to go into detail on other occasions. I'd also like to talk about Kowloon East CBD2. In the special meeting of the Finance Committee, I spoke with the Secretary regarding the establishment of the Kowloon East office. I hope that resources will be reviewed continuously. This is the third time of 5-year establishment. Will the entire office be shelved? Will it be cancelled? The CBD2 of Kowloon East was floated by the administration in 2011. It was a top-level planning design in the hope of developing Kowloon East into a core business district. Under the Development Bureau, we have an office targeting Kowloon East. If we no longer have this office, this will leave a large question mark for people in Hong Kong. People are working very hard to introduce different enterprises and to create a rich ecosystem in CBD2. If we no longer have the energizing Kowloon East office, this is like pouring cold water onto the hopes of people in Hong Kong. Many people are working hard to turn these buildings into Category A commercial buildings. We are now in the final phase of infrastructure. The Kai Tak Sports Park is a significant achievement. Central Kowloon Route, the monorail project in Kowloon East, we are now inviting tenders. We are seeing different indications of good progress, and the key is whether we can seize upon these opportunities. I consulted Mr. Sunny Tan as well as a lot of experts, and then I came up with the sustainable high-quality development of Kowloon East as CBD2. I sent it over to a lot of different principal officials. I really hope that Kowloon East will become a CBD2 that will drive the development of INT as well as entrepreneurship. Society, especially the administration, is focusing on the construction of the Northern Metropolis. I hope this will be a testing field of the Northern Metropolis. We need to achieve complementarity. Many enterprises, or even giant enterprises in mainland China, want to come to Hong Kong. They want to go global, taking advantage of Hong Kong. I hope the Hong Kong government will attach importance to the Kowloon East. I hope that the function of the energizing Kowloon East office will be on forging consensus among the public, the academia, or the commercial sector. We need to bring people together to tell the good stories of Kowloon East, and the energizing Kowloon East office is exactly the secretariat of this committee. Smart tender, enhanced smart tender, I have a few principles to share. In order to know more about the Wang Fo Court fire or the building management system in Hong Kong, in 1984 we had Wang Fo Court and Lok Na Court in Kwun Tong was also set up in 1984, 8 units on each floor, and it's the difference about the number of floors. In 2020, Lok Na Court finished the large-scale renovation works. As much as $78 million were spent, which included the external wall works. Why would it be so low in cost? However, when it comes to the cost in Wang Fo Court, it's about $300 million. 2 more blocks? Is it really that expensive? We really need to enhance the functions of smart tender. We need to have a package price. That is a package price for large-scale renovation works. It should act as a reference for future tenders. Civil servants need to be more proactive. They shouldn't rely on one single public organization. There are many contractual staff members. We place a lot of emphasis on integrity. We also need to attach importance to large-scale renovation works. There are 6 blocks in Lok Na Court. Each contractor works on 3 blocks, so there will be a total of 2 contractors, and this will encourage positive competition. I so submit thank you.
Ms. Michelle Tang. Thank you, Deputy President. We have complex geopolitics at the moment. We see constant changes in the world. The Financial Secretary's latest budget is forward-looking, provides stability to the economy, instills confidence, and lays the foundations for the future development of Hong Kong. It has received support from various sectors. This is the first year of the National 15 Five-Year Plan. We must proactively integrate and serve the development of the country. I'm very happy to see that the budget is in this direction and has enhancements for infrastructure investment, setting up of the industry-oriented fund, and actively dovetails with the high-quality development of the country to create favorable conditions. The budget proposes to reallocate funds in the exchange fund to other specific development measures, as well as issuing bonds to enhance infrastructural development. I support this. I think the government should work with the central authorities to set up a platform to provide facilitation to mainland enterprises to make good use of Hong Kong to promote going global of local enterprises as well as high value added mainland brands. We have the Northern Metropolis being a key engine for growth for the city in future. I support the government in promulgating legislation for the Northern Metropolis as soon as possible. I also support the approach of adopting a large-scale land disposal model to have more flexible land premium payment arrangements and to provide tax concessions as well as other forms of support to attract more private capital in taking part in the construction of infrastructure. We must actively dovetail with the National 15 Five-Year Plan and the INT layout in the GBA. We need to have innovative cross-boundary policies in the Hetao area to promote the flow of different factor input, to promote synergistic development of the research and industrial sectors. As a part of the engineering sector, I'm especially paying attention to the enhancement of quality of construction. We need to review the construction standards to promote the use of AI to help the sector upgrade and transform. I hope the administration will encourage the sector to pilot different arrangements in the Northern Metropolis to make use of, say, smart design as well as smart site management to lower costs and to empower their operations with technology. It can also enhance competitiveness of the engineering sector. And in the next few years, we will have public works expenditure being at a level of $128 billion. During the Special Finance Committee sessions, I have expressed some concerns. As we see there being an inflation and an increasing construction costs, would we have to cut manpower or cut personal allurements or even terminate certain projects when fiscal position is tight? This will seriously impact the engineering sector and the quality of projects. I'm happy to hear that the government officials say there will be the same level of expenditure will be maintained. I hope the government through promulgating its first 5-year plan, will provide a clear development blueprint for the engineering and construction trades. As we see major infrastructure projects commencing, there is great demand for talents in the sector. I hope the government can attach great importance to training of talents and ensuring their development prospects. I'm also happy to hear the government is allocating funding to increase the number of training quotas in the construction sector. The government should work with the trade to have targeted planning in manpower resources and to continuously enhance professional certification systems to attract and retain talents, to make sure we have manpower supply that will tie in with demand for infrastructure, so we will not see serious fluctuations as we saw before in this sector. The budget also shows care of the government for the people. We have the government reserving funds for the recovery work after the Taipo fire and to support the long-term living arrangements of those affected by the fire. I hope the government can enhance cross-departmental coordination and to ensure transparency and efficiency of relevant recovery work. We should also learn from the experience and have a comprehensive review of the fire safety regime and building management. There should be continuous promotion of Operation Building Bright 2.0 and enhancement of relevant subsidy schemes to enhance the safety of aged buildings to protect citizens' lives and property. We have seen significant surge in oil prices. On 9th of April, the government announced 4 temporary support measures, and the next day the Finance Committee passed subsidies for diesel of $1.8 billion. It really shows that the legislature and executive are working closely together to provide support to the people. I also told government officials the engineering sector is significantly impacted by high oil prices. Transportation material costs will surge. This will increase project estimates. It may also delay projects being undertaken. I urge the government to keep in view of the situation and provide appropriate support to the sector when necessary. I also urge the government to review the pricing mechanism of the oil market and enhance transparency and competitiveness to make sure oil prices will not only adjust upwards but also downwards to benefit the people and the sector. The Oasis recently announced the 6th batch of 22 enterprises. We have already seen 124 enterprises coming to Hong Kong. In the next few years, they are expected to bring $73 billion in investment and create many job opportunities. It has created great potential for the upgrading of industries and building of a talent pool. Talents are the most important assets of Hong Kong. The government has set a target in 2026-2027. We have 35% and 30% of the students studying STEM-related projects and 60% of the students studying the 8 centers positioning-related subjects. I support this, but we need to make sure students can make use of what they learn. We should track graduates' career development and make sure there is proper matching of resources so that after youngsters graduate, they can really make use of what they learn. This is the key to the success of tertiary and education and FEPAT. This will help us go into even higher quality development. I so submit speaking in support of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Deputy President. The new budget is pragmatic yet forward-looking. I thank the government for taking in the feedback of the BPA and textile sector. We're at a critical juncture of the century. We have seen great uncertainties in global politics. With the promulgation of the National 15 5-year plan, the government is also actively preparing its own 5-year plan. It's important to seize the opportunities of the country, and at this stage, with the implementation of the budget, we need to make sure we have regard to the current circumstances. I understand that the government is in a tight position, but it is also important to invest in the future to make sure in policy and resource allocation we are promoting the alignment of traditional and emerging industries with the National 15 Five-Year Plan to promote innovation of industries. I have 6 areas to cover. We have different measures in the budget to promote the development of an international trade center as well as in development of traditional industries. In the National 15 Five-Year Plan, it did mention we have to upgrade traditional industries and we have to enhance the supply of quality textile products. It shows that the country attaches great importance to the development of traditional industries. And Director Xia Baolong said last week specifically that Hong Kong is very competitive in the world and we really need to focus on upgrading ourselves. To build a modern industrial system, it is important to different sectors, just like the textiles industry. We have our sweaters and undergarments taking the lead in the global supply chain. And the manufacturing sector has all along been an important part of the economy. The textile sector is an advantageous industry. It is also a key part to the connectivity between the mainland and overseas. The year before last, I worked with the trade to have the mainland sign with ASEAN countries a memorandum of understanding to deepen cooperation. And we have arranged for 2 delegation visits to Singapore. Next Tuesday, Hong Kong will host an event with the mainland and ASEAN trade stakeholders, a seminar on opportunities brought about by the National 15 Five-Year Plan. So the trade's expectation is that with Hong Kong promulgating its 5-year plan, we will have a 3-pronged approach where we'll try to promote both traditional and emerging industries. We will also have specific industrial policies for different industries. We will also try to make use of our strengths to enhance global supply chain to make contributions to the country. We really need to transform the industries in doing so. The BUD fund is very important. It is our buffer. And we also have the export credit insurance playing a key part. I'm glad to hear in the budget we have some measures specific to the BUD fund and ECIC. We have the ceiling limit increase. The application ceiling increased to $150,000. We also have specific subsidies for making use of AI. It is very important to the sector in undergoing upgrading and transformation. With changes made to BUD fund arrangements last March, we have the matching ratio being 1-3, 1 government, 3 of industries. And that has caused some enterprises to have reservations for applying, and we can see the latest figures. In the last year, we have seen a reduction of 4,000 cases for the larger amount subsidies. Understand the government wants to be prudent, but SMEs account for 98% of total number of enterprises in Hong Kong. They are an important economic pillar. They are already on a co-payment basis. Can we lower the ratio to 1-2? We can also lower the ratio for AI subsidies to 1-1. It can really help upgrade the upgrading and transformation of industries if we do that. Innovation and technology is also really important, and we really need to promote AI applications. The tech sector hopes the government can provide support in making use of AI. I urge the government to have a development blueprint for AI development. We have different public bodies working with INT enterprises and tertiary institutions to have AI training courses, and public bodies are strength in this regard. I hope the government can make good use of the organizations to promote learning for industries and citizens in general so that we can take advantage of the opportunities of AI. Director Xia Baolong also said last week in uncertainties in the world, it is very important to provide professional services because this is going to provide stability for Hong Kong and the country. Hong Kong has all along been the premier Go Global platform for mainland enterprises. We really need to polish our brand. I hope the Go Global task force will come up with different measures to actively recruit large, small, and medium-sized enterprises in the mainland to come to Hong Kong. We should make good use of the connectivity with different municipalities and provinces, authorities, and to really build a cluster. We should have dedicated officers or teams to recruit enterprises of different scales in different sectors and provide diversified Go Global services to them. I hope with the Inland Revenue Board, we can have specific studies into tax concessions. We have the National 15 5-year plan supporting traditional and emerging industries to set up regional headquarters in Hong Kong. And we should try to start with the top-notch enterprises because then small and medium-sized enterprises will follow. We want to not only have people put their capital in banks as a safe harbor for international capital, we should expand the depth and width of our market. We should have more renminbi denominated products. We should also have more commodity products. Right now, we have 500 companies waiting to list in Hong Kong. We should simplify the listing procedures, shorten the waiting time, lower the listing costs so that we can have enterprises of different scales take advantage of financing arrangements in Hong Kong. We also need to look at the talent and technology aspects to review our financing system to make sure we have adequate capacity for listing of companies. The National 15 5-year plan attaches great importance to the development of the Northern Metropolis. We should focus on where we have an edge first. For example, for life and health technology, we have half of the 10 top pharmaceutical companies coming to Hong Kong, and Hetao will soon be able to develop into a hub in this area. Can we focus on certain industries first where we have an edge and we can become top in the world, and then we can then talk about other industries? There are great opportunities to tap into at this juncture. The sector, and I will continue to support the government in the government's measures to dovetail with the National 5-year plan and implement the budget measures to support high-quality development. I support this bill. Mr. Lam Chen Singh.
Thank you, Deputy President. Now, the government has turned the three fiscal accounts, including consolidated accounts as well as the operating accounts and capital accounts, into the black. I support the government's determination in doing that. This year's budget continues to adopt a macro view in developing our economy. Now, in terms of supporting the grassroots, there are additional tax allowance on single parents as well as child allowance and dependent parents. Now, there were only 4,700 newborn babies in the first 2 months this year. It's less than 5,000. If this trend continues, there may be fewer than 30,000 newborn babies for the entire year, a record low. Now, the government might regret issuing the $20,000 newborn baby bonus because that didn't help much. Is it time to heed the alarm and offer more measures to support child rearing? Now, the first step is the hardest, and also that's the case for childbirth as well. After giving birth to the first child, it's easier to have more children. So there should be more child tax allowance for the second child, and the increase should be larger. Now, for middle-class families, it would be very attractive to have more than one child. Now, the budget didn't mention this, but the government mentioned that the school-based after-school care scheme would be extended from 205 primary schools to more schools. Now, we can consider extending the service hours of the program as well, so that more families who are marginally exceeding the eligibility threshold can also enjoy the service. And also, we can regularize the program so that it is no longer supported under the CCF, so that no application is needed. Now, concerning post-fire alleviation, the government has allocated $300 million to enhance the smart tender mechanism. Now, there are some buildings who are nearing the deadline for renovation. However, they would like to wait for the enhancements of the smart tender so that they can enjoy the enhanced service in choosing a contractor. Now, the government has also launched enhancement measures on the regulatory regime. That means that the compliance costs will inevitably increase. So we should have more support for old buildings to take forward these schemes. Now, for example, the subsidy scheme for renovating the communal places of old buildings, the funding amount has not been increased for several years' time. They should be enhanced to $225,000 and $1.5 million. That's an increase of 50% to alleviate the financial burden on flat owners. And also, the subsidy cap of the subsidy scheme for occupant owners of flats requiring renovation should be increased to $100,000 as well. Now, the BHU regime has taken effect in March this year. Now, the government said there are already some 1,000 applications being processed involving some 4,000 subdivided units. Now, some only involves basic alteration without the tenants having to move away. However, there are tens of thousands of units pending approval and alteration. Will that cause an exodus of tenants? If they fail to find reasonably priced accommodation, they may have to choose illegal and substandard subdivided flats in industrial buildings. So the government should enhance the supply of transitional housing in the interim and also conduct the approval in batches so that the accreditation process takes place in batches. That can avoid the situation of a large batch of SDUs undergoing moderation at the same time affecting a lot of tenants. Now, the government has also allocated $10 billion in loan to build the university town. Details have not been announced yet. I have 3 suggestions to make. First of all, universities supported by public funding has more financial resources compared with the private sector. So in terms of privately funded universities and also foreign education institutions, they should enjoy a more preferential treatment in terms of interest rates and loan repayment period. Now, concerning the industry-oriented positioning of the university town, the government should impose conditions in the loan agreements, for example, requiring the loan applicants to establish institutions with a close relationship with nearby industrial land. Incentives should be offered for the institutions to establish common facilities like laboratories to promote resources sharing in the area. Now, the 15th Five-Year Plan has given clear support for Hong Kong to become a talent hub. Now, in the past 2 years' time, under the various talent admission scheme, some 270,000 talents, together with their family members, have come to Hong Kong. Now, besides pushing for a high number of renewal applications, we need to ensure that these talents match our development needs. Now, the LWB will announce the midterm manpower projection this year. Now, if the report shows that the talent admission scheme does not help in closing the gap, the manpower gap projected by the 2023 manpower projection, then the government should adjust the measures, for example, adjusting the threshold conditions as well as the type of industries covered. Now, for example, the 60 professions on the list, 10% of the professions have not seen any applications, including midwives, opticians, as well as dental hygienists. Now, for those job types without a serious shortage of manpower, they should be removed from the talent list. There should be an adjustable mechanism for the list. For professions like legal as well as engineering, there have been zero applications as well. Does it mean that we don't need any more of the talents because we are transitioning? And by the same token, do we need more talents in the field of AI and robotics? Should we adjust the requirements and eligibility? Now, even if a profession is removed from the talent list, as long as the employer can prove the difficulty in hiring, importation is still allowed. Now, besides attracting imported labor and filling the manpower gap, we can also provide more opportunities to local employees. We should cast our eyes further. The ratio of foreign talents under the Top Talent Pass scheme should be enhanced from 6 to 7% to 10% or even 15%. With goals and plans, we can showcase Hong Kong's status as an international highland for talent. I also submit to support the Appropriation Bill 2026. Professor Priscilla Leung. Deputy President, I speak in support of this year's Appropriation Bill. This budget is the fourth budget of this term of government. The best news is that we are turning around the deficit. Now, in 2017, I gave this gift to the Financial Secretary. We were facing adversity, but this year we are making a profit, so I hope we can keep up with our efforts. Now, protectionism is on the rise, and this is the first year of the 15th Five-Year Plan. The role given to Hong Kong by the country is for Hong Kong to lead internationalization of the country's rules in terms of global governance, deepening global cooperation, and turning the Bay Area into a world-class Bay Area. When the country asks, we rise up. For the next 5 years, our most important task is to rise up to the country's needs. Adhering to one country, two systems is the most important thing. Articles 107 and 108 stipulates that we have to spend within our limits, and also we need to maintain our status as a free port and economy. We should maintain a low tax regime. We have to ensure that we are still the freest investment destination. Now, besides enhancing education and innovation, we have to safeguard livelihoods and security. Now, the budget embraces the spirit of spending within our limits and also spend where we need to spend. Now, I'm pleased to hear that the Oasis can introduce a giant enterprise worth $100 billion. It is expected it will bring some $73 billion in revenue. That's great. But let's not stop there. I think we have to change the civil service mindset. It is still lagging behind the technological era. So in terms of removing barriers, first we need to reform the mindset of the administration. Now, 3 years ago, I have personal experience. I led a $2 billion worth green energy enterprises to invest in Hong Kong. However, they were given a cold shoulder by the then administration, so they turned to Guangdong. Now the green logistic company has thrived. We have lost out on a great opportunity. That shows that the mindset of the administration really needs to change. In terms of creating new revenue stream, we need to grow the cake larger. Now we are still relying on stamp duty and profits tax I support debt issuance. Now we are expanding the size of debt issuance to $900 billion, but that's not enough. Now, for Singapore, even without deficits, they are issuing a debt in the size of 6.5 trillion Hong Kong dollars. Now, the major buyer of the debt is the Providence, the centralized Providence Fund. So maybe we have to conduct a rethink on our MPF system. I've said this on the previous term as well. We need to spend the money on development. Now, I support the clawing back $150 billion from the Foreign Exchange Fund for infrastructure and Northern Metropolis. Now, for Northern Metropolis, many achievements have been made, will be seen in year 2035. Now, for Sentinel-Pole and the Hetao Loop, the government has allocated a total of $10 billion to support population intake. There's also an aviation and different industries-oriented fund. I support all these. These are long-term investments. I'm more concerned about the following. Now, the government mentioned that there will be short-term tendencies for industries and businesses to sit on the bench and see what happens. I beg to differ. The Northern Metropolis accounts for 1/3 of our territories. We can't afford to have businesses being hesitant. Now, in Suzhou, back in 1994, I served some clients in Suzhou. The Suzhou Industry Park has a clear plan. In 20 or 30 years' time, what will happen? Everyone knows that. They attracted businesses with a plan. So we need to be more bold in our planning for Northern Metropolis. Instead of a scattered effort, there should be a coordinated effort. There should be a blueprint. Now, in terms of developing the Bay Area, we are talking about rules, alignments, and coordination mechanism. Now, that means fully utilizing the land and manpower resources as well as the experience in dealing with crisis in the Bay Area. Now, the silver era has ushered in. In Hong Kong, the young people to old people ratio is getting higher. Now, we need to make plans to harness the silver economy so that the silver population is not a burden. The mainland is doing very well in this regard in terms of healthcare and consumption. We should learn from them and cooperate with them. In crisis management, it brings to mind Wang Fukot's fire. There is still a question in the public. Why, on the day of the fire, firefighters and fire engines from Shenzhen were not allowed in? The government must give us a clear explanation, otherwise the question will remain in our hearts. The mainland's experience in dealing with major catastrophe is much richer than ours. We need to be humble and cooperate with them. In terms of rules alignments and mechanism cooperation, we need to cooperate with the legal sector in the Bay Area. Now, we should introduce more laws for that purpose. Now, for example, we can also introduce legal talents from the mainland to help the DOJ, and also on foreign-related laws as well. In terms of courts, more resources should be given to courts to encourage quality legal talents to come to Hong Kong. There are so many vacancies that we need to fill. Now, with the support of different sectors, I have established an association of global exchanges which is supported by the CPBCC. Now, I have encountered some difficulties as well because I don't know which bureau to approach in terms of exchanges on the people's level. Now, for sports and performances, it's easier because there are dedicated funds. However, in terms of deepening foreign cooperation exchanges, that's the role given to us by the country. We need to connect people's hearts. That includes international governance, legal talents. Besides hardware, we need to connect hearts as well. So will there be a dedicated fund across the bureaus for this purpose? This is something that I really want to see. Now, and also cutting expenditure. Now, the government is the largest employer with some $162 billion spent on remuneration. Now, besides cutting the size of the establishments, we have to enhance the civil service sense of mission. That's the job of the civil service college. Civil service, new or old, with sufficient determination and mission in mind, we can save a lot of money. Take polling dates, for example. It costs the government a lot to pay for the manpower at polling stations. Why we are not asking civil servants to fill those posts on voluntary basis? Why can't we ask civil servants to join care teams in district to save money? Now, many council members are also volunteers, despite our high salary. So the civil servants should do the same as well. Now, about the 100% and special 90 and 80% loan guarantee scheme, the bad debt ratio, the bad debt amounts to some $38 billion. That's enough for paying the construction cost of the Kai Tak Sports Park. The government needs to hold those applicants accountable and account for the bad debt. Now, finally, besides supporting the budget, I hope that the government in the 5-year plan can become bolder and aggressive. Thank you.
Ms. Zhou Fei Chen. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. I'm going to speak on three main fronts. This year marks the beginning year of the 15th five-year plan. In the budget of the Financial Secretary, he dedicated a chapter to dovetailing with the 15th five-year plan. Last week, on the 15th, it was the first National Security Education Day. The theme of the Education Day was to dovetail with the 15th five-year plan. We need to insist on coordinated development with safety. This shows the significance of national security. In the ceremony and the thematic seminar of the National Security Education Day, Director Mr. Xia Baolong emphasized that we have to move from chaos to order and from stability to prosperity. We need security before we can pursue development. National security goes hand in hand with economic development. Without national security, no one will be safe, not to speak of economic development. There are political tensions in the Middle East. We need to appreciate our national security that we are enjoying. We do not need to face any wars. However, we are still safeguarding our national security. The hegemony of the U.S. is still rising. Last year, based on my speech at the second reading debate of the 2025 Appropriation Bill, President Mr. Donald Trump was waging tariff wars. We need to guard against any external factors and external impacts on the people in Hong Kong. Regarding energy prices, we need to make sure that the subsidies will be put to good use. We need to benefit members of the public directly. We also need to protect wage earners in Hong Kong. We need to help them secure their jobs. We shouldn't let enterprises get the benefits or subsidies or grants while at the same time axing employees. Regarding Healthy Hong Kong, at the special meeting of the Finance Committee this year, on behalf of the FTU, I have been championing using good China manufactured drugs in Hong Kong. The purpose is to allow more registration of state manufactured drugs in Hong Kong. When there are more drugs available in Hong Kong, the patients in Hong Kong will have more hopes. This will also drive down the costs of drugs due to competition. I have been pushing for more drugs to be registered in Hong Kong. In the past, there needed to be 2 places where a drug was registered, excluding the Chinese mainland. However, now the system has changed, and we are seeing ongoing improvements in the mechanism. The latest figure is that there have been 19 latest applications, However, the expenditure on drugs of the hospital authority has been rising. Last year, $12.7 billion, and this year the figure is going to increase to $13 billion. With more drugs, we can provide more services to serve more patients. However, when there are more types of drugs, should the cost of drugs be lowered, we have more bargaining power. Patients should benefit. This is what we expect. That's why I believe we need to show concern about the cost of drugs. The public healthcare reforms, we can save more money from members of the public, but we cannot let money go directly to the pharmaceutical companies. I hope that the government will do more on this front. I need to thank the Environment and Ecology Bureau. At the special meeting of the Finance Committee, I made some suggestions on consuming less salt and sugar. We need to shape Hong Kong into a healthy Hong Kong. Under the 15th Five-Year Plan, it mentions for the first time a healthy China. That is the first time this chapter becomes one single chapter. Hong Kong needs to contribute more to our country. Apart from our achievements in IPO, we need to give ourselves a round of applause. According to the CNSD, in March, the average age of women is 88.7 years old, whereas for men it's about 85. It has to do with our healthy eating and medical technologies. This will shape our country into healthy China. We need to contribute to this idea. With healthy eating, I can see the Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism, and we can definitely promote this to tourists. Apart from universities, we can work at secondary schools to promote these as well. We need to proactively attract international students to come to Hong Kong. I suggest resources be given to secondary schools. We can ease the pressure on student admission for secondary schools, and we can also help international students to seamlessly move from one education stage to another. I so submit. Thank you. Mr. Stanley Ng. Thank you. I speak in support of the budget. We are having a weakened momentum of economic recovery. However, we are still going by the principle of benefiting the people alongside pursuing development. We need to control expenditure. We need to answer the call of the people in Hong Kong. We need to take care of the interest of the grassrooters in Hong Kong. We also need to focus on the high-quality development of the local economy and industries. This shows that the administration adopts a people-centric approach to pursue economic development. This budget has taken into account the local circumstances as well as the long-term development. Global geopolitical situations are complex and ever-changing. We are facing different challenges. However, the administration is still pouring a lot of money into improving the lives of people. The administration has launched measures that improve the lives of local people. There are tax concessions, and there are also measures for easing the pressure of different categories of people in Hong Kong. There are targeted measures for helping SMEs, elderly people, the disadvantaged, and so on. At the same time, Hong Kong is pursuing high-quality development and focuses on economic transformation. Hong Kong keeps strengthening I&T research and industrial input. Hong Kong is grooming emerging industrial clusters at full steam. We are enhancing the core competitive edge as an international financial center. All these are worth our acknowledgement. This is the beginning year of the 15th five-year plan of our country. The FTU hopes that the government will seize upon the strategic opportunities brought by the 15th five-year plan. We need to tie in with the national development, and we also need to speed up the overall development speed of the Northern Metropolis. We need to make good use of the two parks in Hetao area. We need to collaborate with different cities in the GBA so that we can grow large the economic pie that is the local economy. We also need to expand our market and to develop the local economy. We need to enhance our strategic position in our national development so that we can pursue coordinated development. On this basis, the FTU is of the view that we need to stabilize our society, and this is very important to the development of our community. This provides a strong backing for improving the sense of well-being of Hong Kongers. Employment is key. It's key to the development of the local economy. We need stable and high-quality employment. This has to do with every family in Hong Kong as well as everyone in Hong Kong. It also has a lot to do with social harmony, city competitiveness, and so on. If we can build an employment-friendly society, we can bridge the wealth gap, and we can also solve different conflicts in Hong Kong. We will also be able to let wage earners have more stable jobs. We will then be able to enhance the proactiveness and innovation or innovative spirit of workers in Hong Kong. This will add vitality to the local economy. If we have a high-quality employment development, we can attract high-caliber talent from overseas to Hong Kong. Then this can help the local enterprises to upgrade and transform. This will also help the local economy to continue with the virtuous cycle. If we have an employment-friendly society, then we will be in a position to solve different problems that are plaguing Hong Kong. In Hong Kong, we have different types of jobs. Under the budget, there are targeted measures for helping different people, including teenagers, the middle-aged, the grassrooters. There are also different measures for upskilling local workers. As a result, the cycle of unemployment can be shortened. This will provide better support to different job positions in SMEs. At the same time, we need to enhance the protection mechanism for the interests and rights of local workers. We need to forge harmonious relationships between employers and employees. We have different measures to support these areas. These have responded to the calls of Hong Kong workers. This promotes the development of high-quality employment market in order to further develop an employment-friendly society and to better implement the employment-related policies under the budget. I'm going to put forward a few proposals. One, we need to enhance vocational training. We need to link vocational training to INT, finance, new industrialization, and so on. We need to improve the contents of different courses. We need to expand the courses to cover more people, including grassrooters, the unemployed, teenagers, and so on. We need to provide free skilling, and we also need to provide upskilling plus employment services. We need to help them with targeted matching and accurate matching. Besides, we need to help workers in Hong Kong to protect their interests and rights. We need to make sure that the local employment market is stable and orderly, targeting employment in the silver hair groups and among PWDs. There are different programs in place. Then we can create a more inclusive employment environment that includes the Re-employment Allowance Pilot Scheme. We need to use digitalization to improve the application procedures for Re-employment Allowance Pilot Scheme. This will provide more well-rounded employment services for locals. We believe development is key to solving different problems in Hong Kong. Only by realizing economic development can we continue to consolidate our fiscal strength, and this is how we can improve local lives and improve the local employment environment. Only then can we share the fruits of economic development with all members of the public in Hong Kong. Then everyone in Hong Kong can share the responsibility, share the prosperity of Hong Kong. Once again, the FTU expresses full support for the budget. I so submit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas So. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Appropriation Bill 2026. This year's budget's theme is to have innovation drive the development of finance, and we should have diversified development while still caring for the citizens. I support this direction. And I also support the government in making forward-looking mid to long-term plans that tie in with the National 15 5-year plan. We have, in particular, dovetailed with the country's plan to upgrade the Northern Metropolis into a national strategic initiative and inject another $30 billion in the initiative. We should provide AI training to promote digital transformation of society. We have the professional services sector in Hong Kong bearing the mission to help mainland enterprises go global. We should make sure we incorporate technology to help different industries transform. In terms of livelihood policies, I'm glad to see that the budget continues to provide tax and rates concessions, as well as increased tax allowances and deduction limits. This shows the care that the government has for citizens. We have seen fiscal position of the government reverse from having a deficit to having a surplus. I, in particular, am concerned about the integration of the GBA. I have made proposals to the government, and I thank the government for taking on board some of the proposals, and some of them have been included in the budget. One of them is to have the 2 parks of the Hotel Corporation Zone to make sure we have a smooth flow of factor input, manpower, capital, data within the parks, and make sure we have cross-boundary transportation arrangements for the different biosamples. This is very important for the synergistic development of innovation and technology in the Greater Bay Area. We have seen the budget make good use of the advantages of the Hong Kong International Airport. The specific measures include expanding intermodal transport and the Hong Kong International Airport Dongguan Logistics Parks. These will help consolidate Hong Kong's status as an international logistics center. We will also pilot in Qianhai the new engineering contract model, and we are actively promoting alignment of construction standards within the Greater Bay Area. Laws are the foundations of society, and it also facilitates the prosperity of society. I'm glad to see in the budget there is a particular part on developing Hong Kong as an international legal and dispute resolution center. Apart from promoting Hong Kong's development as an international legal hub and to enhance dispute resolution and mediation services, I'm glad to see in the budget the DOJ taking the lead to enhance professional collaboration to support mainland enterprises to make use of Hong Kong as a platform to go global. This will help with Hong Kong's serving of the country's high quality development. On the way forward, I have 2 points to make. One, we should continue to promote the upgrading and transformation of industries to match our needs in going global. In the budget, we have measures that will promote, say, the development of AI that will facilitate the digitalization of society. I've been advocating for making use of technology to promote the upgrading and transformation of professional services, including the legal sector and the digitalization of dispute resolution and mediation services. We do not see specific details in the budget this year, but I think the direction the government is taking is in line with mine. I will continue to follow in this regard. I think digital development is the future, and the Secretary for Justice has set up a cross-departmental working group on supporting a wider use of AI. And with the country opening up, we need the professional services sector, including the legal sector, to make good use of technology to enhance efficiency and quality of professional services that will be provided across boundaries as well as locally. I think the government should consider allocating more resources in a targeted manner. And through the city's first 5-year plan, there should be a development blueprint for digitalization of the professional services sector so that we can take advantage of the trends in innovation and technology to set up a safe and sustainable environment of the sectors that is powered by technology. We should also suitably follow up on the Northern Metropolis legal infrastructure, with the National 15 5-year plan making the development of Northern Metropolis a key strategic initiative of the government. With it combined with Shenzhen, we will have 2.5 million in population and 600,000 jobs. And the jobs will be focused on emerging industries. The area will be a diversified development area. In expediting development of Northern Metropolis, rather than just focusing on hardware, we need to make sure we have the ancillary facilities such as courts, as well as in response to the developments in emerging industries and AI and other areas, we need to make sure we meet the needs in dispute resolution services. For Hong Kong's development into the regional IP trading hub, we need to make sure we have the professional services and talents for that. We need to make sure we prepare for this. The government should plan in advance. We have the Northern Metropolis facilitating development of emerging industries. And if we can plan in advance to make sure we meet the potential dispute resolution service needs, it would be ideal. We need to make sure in planning and resource allocation we prepare for this. We should also have the judiciary probably pilot some arrangements and plan in advance in relation to issues relating to judicial efficiency. Unfortunately, we have not seen the government promulgating any policies in planning in advance the relevant judicial facilities. I hope the government can allocate resources in advance. Overall speaking, I support the direction of the budget. I think in different areas such as the digital transformation of professional services and the development of Northern Metropolis, I have made suggestions before and I will continue to follow up on these issues. I so submit speaking in support of the bill.